Hello, welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute, but I have been up to some pretty exciting things. In the past month, I have launched not one, but two podcasts, as well as a second channel, so I will link them down below. The podcast is all about the same things that I talk about on this channel, but a little bit more in depth because it's not censored like it is here on YouTube. And I have another podcast all about spirituality, and that's also what my second channel is about. So I will link them down below if you want to go give them a listen and a follow. So for today's video, I am going to be talking about the SMURL family haunting, and I thought that this was a good topic because it's the first day of spooky month, October, and I am actually from the area where this alleged haunting took place, so it's always been really interesting to me, and I am curious to hear what you guys think because there's a lot of controversy about this case. This was a case that was investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren, and a lot of you probably know them because of their involvement in the Amityville horror story, as well as the events that the Conjuring movies are based upon. So this story starts off with Jack and Janet SMURL. They were a couple who lived in the town of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. It is about an hour and a half away from Philadelphia. It is in the northeast region of Pennsylvania. And this area was very prone to flooding, and in 1972, Hurricane Agnes caused a lot of damage to the town, causing many of the families to evacuate their homes. The SMURLs were one of the families that had no choice but to evacuate. Their home was totally destroyed due to the hurricane, and this left them needing to find a new place to live. So that is how they came to live at 328 Chase Street in West Pittston. This house was a duplex, and so it's kind of like two separate houses joined together. Jack and Janet lived in one half, and then Jack's parents, John and Mary, lived on the other side. For the first year and a half, nothing major happened inside the home. There weren't any reports of any disturbances, and it was a pretty peaceful place to live. Both Jack and Janet were native to the area, and they were both of the Catholic faith. It's something that was really important to them, and it would play a huge role in the way that they raised their children and the way they operated as a family. Jack and Janet would later have 4 daughters, Dawn, Heather, and then later on they would have 2 twins, Karen and Shannon. The family was relatively happy until January of 1974, and that's when the hauntings and the strange occurrences started. So up until this point, the SMURLs said that everything was fine inside of their home until the night of their youngest daughter's confirmation into the Catholic Church. A light that was bolted into the beams of the kitchen started to shake, and they said that it nearly fell on top of their daughter. Next, there was an incident where a mysterious stain randomly appeared on their brand new rug. They cleaned it and removed any sign of the stain. However, the next morning, it came back. And this kept happening over and over again until finally the SMURLs just took the rug out to the garbage and decided to bring in a new one. There was one occasion that Jack was watching his favorite movie and the TV suddenly burst into flames. And that was just one of many circumstances where items around their house would randomly catch on fire for no reason. There was one time that a brand new electric stove caught on fire almost instantly after the SMURLs brought it home. And then the SMURLs purchased a brand new vehicle and that also caught on fire. Along with this, there were many times when music would randomly start playing from radios that weren't even plugged in. The SMURLs also had constant plumbing problems in the house as well. There was an issue with the plumbing in their home, and every time that they would fix it, it would still continue to leak or stop working, and the SMURLs had purchased a lot of new appliances, and they were really proud of the work that they had been putting into the house. They were trying to fix it up and make it more homey. They even installed a new bathtub, and right after doing so, they walked in and found it totally destroyed, and scratched. It was almost like scratches left behind by an animal, and they did have a dog, but there was no way that the dog had done this, so that was really strange to them. The SMURLs repainted the ceilings in the home as part of the updates that they were giving it, and the next day after they had finished painting the ceilings, the paint appeared to have been chipped and scratched, and it definitely didn't look like a fresh coat of paint. Their daughter Dawn said that she could see what looked to be people floating above her head while she was trying to sleep at night. The family also said that the smell of rotting flesh began to completely take over their home. Janet said that in the middle of being intimate one night with her husband, she was thrown from her bed, and her husband Jack began to gag because of the strong stench of rotting human flesh. As if that wasn't scary enough, he then began to suspend into thin air. The family has also said that there were occasions where their family dog was thrown into the wall. Jack said that one night while he was praying, he was flung from his bed and dragged across the floor. Different family members have claimed that they were physically assaulted on multiple occasions by what they could only describe as a dark shadow. The mysterious events only got worse after Jack and Janet had their twin daughters. One night, Jack was laying in bed when he felt something caressing his shoulder. He assumed it was his wife, and so he turned around, and when he did, he saw that she was sound asleep right beside him. Janet said that there were many times when she would be in the basement doing laundry, because that's where their washer and dryer were located. She would hear a female voice calling her name, and when she would turn around to see where the voice was coming from, no one would be there. This strange behavior continued for nearly a year before Jack and Janet decided to reach out to the Department of Mines. Since the area was a huge mining community, the SMURLs wondered if perhaps there was something going on with the foundation of the house that was causing these strange occurrences. That, however, was not the explanation behind the strange things happening in their home. As time went on, things only got worse. What seemed to be unexplained inconveniences turned into truly terrifying events. Random parts of the house would become freezing, and the walls would rattle for no reason. Different members of the family started to report that they would even hear vulgar language being screamed out of different areas of the house that no one was in. There were also reports from the family members that random scratches would appear all over their body, and they would appear almost overnight. One day, while Janet was in the kitchen, she saw a large, dark figure appear. And this is when things started to get really twisted. The family began to hear pounding coming from the ceiling and through the walls. They could hear heavy footsteps running across the floor, and they even heard howling, hissing, barking, and the sound of squealing pigs coming from the walls. One of the daughters says that she was ripped from her bed and thrown down a flight of stairs. At this time, the neighbors also began to notice that something weird was going on inside the house. The neighbors reported hearing screaming while the house was vacant, and a few of the neighbors even said that they could feel a dark energy in their own homes at the time. This continued for a while, and finally the SMURLs decided to seek help from the church, because they determined that all of these things must be happening due to a demonic entity. They sought out help from their priest at their church, and the priest told them that in order to do an exorcism at their home, they would need to get approval from someone higher up in the church. However, when they did that, they were denied any help. This is what led the SMURLs to seek help from Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens were demonologists who lived in Connecticut, and they were very well known for haunting cases involving demons and possessions. Unlike the Catholic Church, the Warrens took this very seriously and decided to offer their help. They traveled to the SMURLs' home and even had the SMURLs evaluated by medical professionals. The Warrens first asked the SMURL family if they had done anything that would have invited a demonic entity into their home, either by practicing Satanism or using dark objects like a Ouija board. The SMURLs said absolutely not, and informed the Warrens that they were devout Catholics and they were very dedicated to their faith and the Catholic Church. Upon hearing this, the Warrens told the SMURLs that because the SMURLs were such God-fearing people and had such a strong love for God, the devil had targeted them. Ed has reported that he felt a shift in the temperature as soon as he entered the house. He said that writing would appear on mirrors, telling him to vacate the house, and a very foul stench appeared out of nowhere. A local priest came to the home and said that he could sense there was definitely a strong negative energy in the home. but he could not confirm whether it was demonic or not. When Ed and Lorraine investigated the home, they found that 4 different spirits were inhabiting it. 3 of them, Lorraine said, were human spirits, and one of them was very dark and evil, and she believed that it had been in the home for quite some time. Lorraine explained to the SMURLs that the demon had been laying dormant in the home and was awoken once they moved in, because they had disrupted him with their faith. As the Warrens continued their evaluation of the home, they noticed what they described as demonic activity, almost immediately. They began to pray and play holy music, specifically Gregorian chants. This definitely stirred up the demon, and it began to shake furniture in the room, as well as spelling out messages such as, "You filthy bastards, get out of this house." Ed subdued it by pouring holy water around the room, but this only worked temporarily. After these attempts, the demonic behavior would only get worse. The rattling and shaking of the house would grow more violent, and the family endured even more physical attacks. Janet began communicating with the demon by asking it to knock once for yes and twice for no. She asked the demon if it was there to hurt them, to which it responded with one very loud, abrupt knock for yes. Jack was sexually assaulted by a demon who posed as a female. He said it was covered in scales and had beaming red eyes, as well as oozing sores covering its entire body. However, he wasn't the only one that would have to face this terrifying act, because Janet also claims that she was sexually assaulted by a demon within the home. The family brought in a medium named Mary Rinkman. She confirmed Lorraine's original findings that there were 4 spirits inside the house and stated that one of them was very dark and very evil. Ed and Lorraine sought out help to have the house exorcised. This was really difficult because a lot of the modern Catholic churches did not want any involvement in exorcisms. There was a time when Janet thought that she had found someone to exorcise the house, and this was a priest by the name of Father O'Leary. However, this turned out to be the demon impersonating a priest. Eventually, they found Father McKenna. Father McKenna had recently left the church because he did not agree with the guidelines they had put in place. He now spent his time doing exorcisms, and he came to the SMURL house where he began to do one. Unfortunately, this just ended up angering the demon even more. Sexual assaults only got worse, and their daughter Karen nearly died due to a serious illness. The family began to receive very abusive attacks from the demon. One night, Janet reports a human hand rising up from the mattress and grabbing her. She was also suspended into the air and thrown into a wall. Jack was assaulted once again, and the demon attacked him in the form of a pig on 2 legs. The SMURLs had gone from the first stage of demonic possession, which is infestation, and they were now entering into the oppression stage. The family felt like they had no escape. Wherever they tried to go, the demon would only follow. He was attached not just to the house, but to the family. It was almost as if the demon was feeding off the SMURLs' religious energy and would not stop until it was gone and they were dead. The SMURLs took to the media in an attempt to find someone to come to their home and expel the demon. They were met with a lot of skepticism because a lot of people thought that they were either crazy or doing this for show. News cameras started to wait outside of the SMURL home, and skeptics would show up wanting to investigate only so that they could disprove the SMURL's claims. One of the biggest skeptics was their neighbor, Paul Kurtz, who was the chairman of the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims for the Paranormal. He had offered to pay for a hotel for the SMURLs so that he could examine the house on his own for an entire week, to which the SMURLs declined because they just didn't trust Paul, and they thought that even if he did find something, he wouldn't give an accurate report. They knew he was a skeptic, and they believed that he would actually paint them in a negative light in the media. Paul believed that the SMURLs wanted the media exposure because he believed that they wanted to make money from their story. He accused them of making this up because they wanted to turn their story into a book or a movie, and when Paul asked the Warrens for proof of the possession, they said that they did have proof, but they had already given it to the TV station, so it wasn't available for him to see. Which definitely made the story seem a little bit more suspicious and backed up the theory that it was one giant cash grab. One positive thing came from the mass amounts of media coverage that the SMURL family was getting. The Diocese of Scranton got involved and sent in prayer groups, and they began to organize an exorcism with multiple priests, one of which would be Father McKenna. This exorcism seemed to have worked until the end of the year when it was December of 1986, and Jack said that he saw the demon once again as it appeared right in front of him. This is when the SMURL family decided to move to another town and evacuate their home. There was no escaping the paranormal activity, though, because it only followed them to their new house. An exorcist who was mandated from the Vatican came out to their home and performed one final exorcism. This one is believed to have been the most effective because there was no further paranormal activity. The SMURLs have not reported any further demonic disturbances, and the new tenants of the SMURL home in West Pittston have never reported any disturbances either. Shortly after this, a book called The Haunted was released, detailing the events that the SMURL family had experienced. The book was later turned into a movie. Some find it suspicious and believe it was one giant scheme to make money. However, others defend the family, saying that it would be a pretty elaborate story to carry out for so many years just to make a couple of bucks. A lot of people also have mixed feelings when it comes to Ed and Lorraine Warren and doubt their legitimacy, especially due to some of the other cases that they have been involved in. It is hard to believe an entire family, as well as multiple neighbors, would falsify an entire story, but it also wouldn't surprise me considering what some people are willing to do to make money. I'm unsure whether I believe that the SMURLs' claims were true or not, and I guess the only people who will ever really know are the SMURLs themselves, as well as the people who were involved in performing the exorcisms. Do you think that the hauntings were real, or do you think that the SMURLs invented the entire story in an effort to get exposure from the media and make some money? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you could give it a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. I also hope that you subscribe because I will be coming out with more true crime and paranormal content in the very near future.